Welcome everybody to the Leo Zagami Show for our weekly encounter with the unknown. Okay, first of all, let's thank our sponsors. Welcome everybody. The subject of today is a very important subject, so I need your attention. But first of all, like I said, let's thank the people who made this show possible. Those people who have purchased my books, yes. Of course, my latest bestseller, The Rise and Fall of Frankie's Monster, the only book that gives you the Sabbatean Frankist background of Jeffrey Epstein and his infamous milieu. But we have also a lot of other important books that we're going to be discussing also today. This subject, like I said, is particularly relevant for the times we are living, though I know everybody's focused somewhere else, especially with the war going on in Iran, but this is also an extremely relevant subject. So thanks to Daniel Estes, Malgo Rosata Minta, Ellen Sucatre, Abraham Belez, and Hio Uzumaki. I think it's spelled this way. You have to forgive me, guys, if I can't get all the time the spellings right. And then thanks to Costa Josefides, to all these sponsors, my personal thanks, also with an applause that you deserve. It's an applause which I give you with a profound sense of gratitude. So thank you so much to Daniel Estes, Mago Rosata Minta, Ellen Sucatre, Abraham Velez, Yo Uzumaki, and Costa Josefides. And like I said, I hope I pronounce all your names in the correct way. And thanks also to those people who have purchased my books and also my wife's books, because we have also this important relevant book about our own family cooking, this Zagami family cookbook, the authentic, this is the authentic way of transforming your kitchen in a 5-star Italian restaurant. And I'm glad that a lot of you have actually appreciated this book that my wife has put together. Great recipes, described also with great photos. Trust me, you will no longer go to an Italian restaurant here in the United States once you have tasted the genuine and original way of making this food. Okay, now let's dig deep into today's subject, because today we have actually a subject that might be a little bit scary for some people, but it is actually a very important subject for our kids, especially, who are always on the computer, who are becoming more and more part of this rise of the AI. Now, for 20 years in Rome, this is going to be the 20th edition. For 20 years, various associations of exorcists have usually they meet up discussing subjects which have to do, of course, with exorcism, with the fighting the devil in various ways. Of course, we have a lot to discuss in today's show, so let's start immediately to dig into this subject, which, like I said, I find of great importance. And you can also check out today's topic on my website, on my latest article. Here we have the article called "Exorcists Warn Religious Leaders of All Faiths About the Rise of the AI, aka Cyber Satan." So for those who want to dig a bit deeper, you can actually, I strongly suggest you go and check my website and read the relevant article. Now, there has been a lot of discussions about this year's meeting in Rome, because exorcists are warning religious leaders of this great power that is coming together thanks to the AI, this dark power, this dark force. AI is ushering in a new era for Satanists, and it's very relevant for us. With religious rifts widening around the globe, it says here on the New York Post, an enterprising Christian leader has potentially devised a way to unite the faiths against a common foe. Now, there is also an important article on the Times of London regarding this subject. Devil worshippers are using AI. Exorcists are warned. Yes, devil worshippers are actually using the AI. They are actually using the AI to generate infamous pedophilia content, and even to, resemble their satanic rituals in a virtual form, involving also children. I mean, it's really terrible what is happening, and that's why in this year, for the 20th anniversary of this gathering, which I've been discussing in the past. In fact, it's an important gathering which I've discussed already in volume 6.66 of my Confessions. Now they are, like I said, in their 20th edition, and finally they have realized that the artificial intelligence is actually a real danger. So, as I wrote in Confessions of an Illuminati, volume 6.66, The Age of Cyber Satan, Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, every year at Rome's Regina Apostolorum, the prestigious pontifical university based in Rome, Italy, exorcists and aspiring ones from all over the world meet for a course underlying the healing power of exorcism. And as I explained in this book, which, by the way, I brought out back in 2019, in the first few months of 2019, as I explained back then, this yearly event, which is currently organized by the Sacerdocy Institute in collaboration with the group of social, religious research and information known as GRIS and the International Exorcist Association, AIE, they offer this series of lectures for priests and also for lay people, pastoral workers, psychologists, doctors, teachers, and jurists. And they train them on a subject like exorcism and the role of the prayer of liberation, but also of the traditional Roman rite, because it was noticed immediately after, in 1999, they reformed, unfortunately, the rite of the exorcism following the Second Vatican Council. The exorcists immediately noticed that the exorcism that they provided in 1999 was incomplete and wasn't working. Here in volume 6.66, I explained that very much in detail, explaining all the differences between what was the Roman Rite exorcism before the reform in 1999 and after the reform. By the way, 1999 was also the year of the death of a very important relevant figure when it comes down to exorcisms, especially here in the United States of America. Many people always talk about the figure of Father Malachi Martin, who died in very mysterious circumstances in 1999. Some say he died victim of a demonic attack. Now, this year, for the first time, for this 20th edition, which is organized for the Ministry of Exorcism and the Prayer of Deliverance, always at the Pontifical Atenum Regina Apostolorum, for the first time, there is also non-Catholic priests, but also imams and rabbis. So this course on the Ministry of Exorcism and Deliverance this year is open also to non-Christians. This is the first time. It's going to happen in May. You see, this is all the various specifics. It says, drawing on experts and faculty from multiple disciplines, including theology, medicine, psychology, neuroscience, pastoral ministry. The course provides a comprehensive and well-grounded formation that unites theological competence, spiritual discernment, and pastoral responsibility. This year is gonna be, it's gonna take off on May 11th. It's gonna end up on May 15th. The registration fee is 575, I guess, euros. There is even a simultaneous translation service upon request for 350 euros. Pretty expensive, but you know, this is what the Ateneo Pontificio Regina Apostolorum requests. There is for Catholic priests, for lay people and clergy of other denominations. And like I said, this year, it's also open to non-Christians, so Muslims and Jews. I've explained also in body because I made this, I wrote this trilogy dedicated to Cyber Satan, starting from the Age of Cyber Satan, Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, focusing on the exorcism and also on the fact that this new technology was actually creating more and more problems. And I'm talking about the AI, but also new technology, starting from the mobile phones to everything else that the new generations are subject to, like the constant use of social networks and so on. Now, in December of 2025, Father Sazda, who is a Catholic priest for 47 years in Pennsylvania, who has also a 14 years experience as an exorcist, gave an excellent interview on this front line of spiritual warfare, and he said the tech itself is not really the problem. He said it's the use of which is put. So those who are into the occult, witchcraft, and demonology are using AI as vehicles to cast spells and curses. And you can program the AI. You can program the AI, meaning that now occultists and people dedicated to Satanism are programming the AI, feeding the AI with all the grimoires, all the satanic diableries, and of course, that is really cyber Satan manifesting. That's why I've said the uncontrolled rise of artificial intelligence is a very dangerous thing. In one of the last batches of the Epstein files, we also had this email that is quite interesting because it's sent to Jeffrey Epstein mentioning the possibility of creating a secret society. Peter Thiel loved the secret society idea. And people who know who Peter Thiel is, who know what Palantir is today in relation to the AI, he has done a lot of work on the concept. So Peter Thiel apparently did a lot of work on the concept of a secret society. In my most recent book, The Rise and Fall of Frankie's Monster, I explain how Peter Thiel is not Jewish, but he comes from a family in Frankfurt that was linked to the Sabbatean Frankists, who had in Frankfurt their main base at the time of Jacob Frank in Offenbach. So that is quite interesting, the fact that Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein were discussing the secret society idea, because it's about working with the AI for the rise of the ultimate cyber Satan, which will aid the Antichrist. And we know that Peter Thiel has also discussed the Antichrist. He even gave a series of lectures in Northern California in regards to the Antichrist. We discussed here on the Leo Zagami show other things relating to Jeffrey Epstein obsession with technology. We know that he wanted to, he was interested even in uploading his brain. I mean, when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, his obsession with technology was pretty obvious. I mean, he wanted to have his brain and even his penis frozen after his death, so he could be resurrected in the future. He was a believer in cryonics and resurrection. Epstein told several associates and scientists that he wanted his head and penis frozen. It's not just a conspiracy theory. He was a financial supporter of organizations like Humanity Plus, involved in transhumanism. He was involved in various, Epstein funded the research into genomics and longevity, life extension, genetic research, and he was involved in what is called the Venus Project. He was involved, of course, in seeding the human race. He famously discussed a plan to seed the human race with his DNA by impregnating thousands of women at his ranch in New Mexico. But he also had this thing of uploading. Some of his associates, such as AI researcher Ben Gersel, were working on artificial general intelligence and theories regarding mind uploading during the time Epstein was funding their work. And I explained how mind uploading is part of the fifth major ritual of humanity. I described in this book the 5 major rituals of humanity, which culminate with the fifth ritual, which is the one where they upload their consciousness into the AI, and at that point, they of course completely give themselves in to cyber Satan. Now, going back to this fear that the Exorcists have this year in particular, and that's why they are discussing this subject for the first time. There is actually Father Luis Ramirez Almanza, who is this Mexican priest who will coordinate the annual training course for exorcists in Rome this year in May 2026, says that artificial intelligence is a great power, a force for both good and evil, and can therefore be used for devil worshipping. Now, I explained in my trilogy dedicated to cyber Satan, also in volume 7, I explain how the reverse technology from the fallen angels has created in the 1950s the basis for the development of the AI as we know it today. That reverse engineering that came from Roswell, but some say even before that from a previous UFO that was recovered in Italy at the time of Benito Mussolini in the early 1930s. So there is also this aspect of the rise of cyber Satan, the rise of a technology which has been fed to us deliberately by the fallen angels to create this digital prison around us. Now, Father Almanza, who is in charge this year of this important event, has invited for the first time, aside from the Catholic clergy and even the Christian clergy, rabbis, imams, and he wants them to participate in what he described as an interfaith effort against a shared enemy. Speakers who are booked to address this important audience at this historical May event include also Father Fortunato Di Noto, who is a Sicilian priest who fights Satanists, who combines their devil worship, who basically fights Satanists who combine devil worshipping and pedophilia. So a specific kind of Satanist, because not every Satanist is a pedophile. There is Satanists who, of course, simply state a belief in Satan is something good for them, or that believing in Satan is basically not believing in God, and is simply being, somebody who has an attitude that is, I mean, there is a version of Satanism, the latest version of Satanism. I often discuss it in my books, the Satanic Temple, who actually believes that Satan as a symbol rather than a reality. We had people in the past like Anton LaVey who were kind of claiming a similar interpretation, but in reality were believing in Satan. And they were, of course, Satanists of the more traditional kind who believe in Satan, including the Michael Aquino Temple of Set front. So we have a bunch of exorcists who are now worried in the rise of Cyber Satan. They don't call it yet Cyber Satan, but they are willing to denounce the fact that the AI can generate images of children, for example, involved in satanic rites. This is something that Father Noto has said to the Times of London. He said, using children appeals to them because it's a form of power being exercised over the innocent, even if those children are generated by the artificial intelligence and are not real. In reality, they are mimicking something that is truly evil. Researchers who track cult activities say that the digital devilry it isn't just a theoretical thing. Speaking at a recent Vatican seminar, we had a Vatican seminar on artificial intelligence, and I explained also in my books how these events are becoming quite regular in the Vatican. So there has been, and I discussed it since volume 6.66, the first events were approximately between 2018 2019, and then now they are becoming regularly they regularly take place in the Vatican, events that talk about robotics and AI. But in this case, Bishop Paul Tighe, the senior Vatican official for the Dicastery for Culture and Education, warned that the AI technology could open the door to disturbing new threats, including biological weapons, propaganda, disinformations, and systems which are beyond human control. So there is here Vatican officials who are starting to say, listen, this might get out of control. This cyber Satan reality is really starting to rising, and the fact that the digitally rendered faces, that basically you can create anything with the AI, and you can even, that's another risk, is that the AI is now bringing back the dead, which is basically necromancy. Demonic entities also, like I explained in volume 6.66, often manipulate electronic devices as a way of breaching the material world. They did that in particular during the pandemic. During the pandemic, we had a lot of this happening. People were, a lot of kids, a lot of children were left alone at home in front of the computer. They were no longer going to school, and then the satanic element was creeping in more and more. Now we have a bunch of new generations who are suffering because of what happened during the pandemic, of what we allowed to happen during the pandemic. Now we have also chaos magic. Chaos magic has always merged these elements of cyber culture since the 70s. And in fact, I've discussed that also in volume 7. Chaos magic is also what, in a way, I don't know if he's totally aware of it, but it's definitely something that Donald J. Trump is representing, because he's definitely becoming an agent of chaos. So, in regards to the demons love electronics. They play with electronics all the time. This is something that even Father Sada has stated. And there is demons that even blocked, imagine this, there is demons that apparently blocked blessing prayers stored on an iPad and team members' phones during house exorcism, meaning that if you were using your iPad to maybe read a prayer, or because obviously there is people who know the Roman Rite by heart. I remember once I went and did an exorcism with a very dear friend called Fortunato Luciano Chandra, who is a Knight of the Vatican, who I mentioned in Invisible Master. I think he actually took care of, he wrote something for me for that book, if I don't get it, if I remember right. But Fortunato Luciano Chandra, who is a Knight of the Vatican, he knows by heart the exorcism. So I remember once arriving to this exorcism, we were supposed to exorcise a guy who had been a member of the Supreme Council of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite for a number of years, and he felt the negative influence, the demonic influence, while he was a member of such council, of a Masonic rite, the regular one, by the way, that is located in Piazza del Gesù in Rome, in front of the Jesuit headquarters, not the Jesuit headquarters, but the main church of the Jesuits, the mother church where all the Jesuits are made. But the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite, Supreme Council apparently influenced him negatively. And so by the end of his life, because he died prematurely of a cancer in the brain, he asked me and this friend of mine to go and exorcise him. And it was quite a touching moment, because he died like a month or two later. But the fact that I arrived there, with classic rituals written down and everything ready, and then instead I had next to me a guy who actually knew them by heart. But imagine if you put them on an iPad, and at that point the iPad doesn't work any longer, because you can't rely on an iPad. You can rely maybe on a piece of paper, on something that is written. That's why I always encourage people to buy the paperback versions rather than the Kindle, because you might be affected. The demons might be able to affect electronics. That is something that can happen. So there seems to be a way, and this is in which demons, in a certain sense, can cross over, and that energy for Father Sada, who has investigated the relation with the demonic and new technology. He said that the AI products also are becoming dangerous, especially when they allow users to communicate with deceased relatives. Because, like I said earlier, it's necromancy. So imagine, allowing children to hear stories from the voice of a deceased grandmother or even a mother. That is a feature that Amazon has developed recently. So there is a risk actually of confusing necromancy with novelty, of giving kids, say, okay, let's get your deceased grandmother to read your fairy tale before you going to sleep. It seems like an innocent thing, but it's not so innocent. It opens the door for the demonic. And demons will always take advantage of anything. So while Catholic teachings hold that God may rarely allow a deceased soul to request prayers, we have to remember that when you are, when you're willing to engage in a conversation with a deceased person, you are probably engaging in conversation with the demon. So you have to be very careful. And then we have these chatbots, these AI chatbots. And these AI chatbots are really becoming very dangerous. They even manage to convince people to attempt suicide or carry on a suicide. They even suggest methods. There has been cases in which the AI, under the form of a chatbot, has managed to give all the instructions for suiciding to a young person. I mean, there is and I explain in my latest article on leozagami.com, there has been cases literally of suicide or attempted suicide that were activated by demonic harassment. Now, we, of course, have to be very careful here because, like Monsignor Corrado Balducci always explained, there is a very thin line between mental health and possession. That thin line that we saw also discussed in the film The Exorcist. I mean, The Exorcist is, of course, I think the first film that discusses this topic and that shows to the world something that the world never. I mean, the subject of exorcism was discussed, of course, within the church, and those who need an exorcism went to their priest. The priest went to their bishop, and of course, if the case was deemed genuine, they would be granted an exorcism. But the movie The Exorcist showed all this for the first time. However, the movie The Exorcist didn't have to deal with the AI, with this new technology, with the fact that most all young people, but even older people, are always with their mobile phones in their hands, and that is it gives definitely opens up a door to the demonic, an ulterior door to the demonic. There is a new emerging trend also in regards to cyber Satan, digital sigils. Now, this is demonic symbols or amulets are traditionally drawn by hand, but they are now being generated online and pushed through AI systems where they continue to circulate indefinitely. So, this might have been discussed in some sci-fi horror movies in the past. There was I remember that movie. Let me see if I remember that that old movie. It was a movie from the 90s now, from a Stephen King book that for the first time, by talking about virtual reality, was also touching on this topic. However, now it's a reality. Now it's definitely a reality. And this reality is a dangerous reality. So there is really this very direct way of finding yourself into the occult, even if you are not such an occult expert. The AI is currently being trained more and more on occult material. You can actually ask the AI for occult material, and the AI is going to probably give you a whole list of grimoires and other things. Once you put something on the internet, it's forever. So if a Satanist uploads a invocation or an evocation on the internet, it stays there forever. And this is also, I guess, an important element of our story. So it's a new dangerous emerging trend, this one of the AI-generated sigils. And they might be, there is actually, Father Zada cites a current legal case in which a deceased woman allegedly created an AI-generated magical sigils attached to the photographs of family members and a lawyer. Apparently, all these people felt mysteriously ill on the same day, and the attorney landing in intensive care on the same day that she had created these AI-generated sigils, which are basically curses also, because they become curses for the people that they aim to attack with them. So it's like amplifying. Like, also, it's interesting. I found this video about this talking with the dead, and this video is kind of interesting because it is a reality that, I mean, until very short time ago, it would have been simply relegated to science fiction. But this is about talking to the dead, and it's becoming a reality. Watch this.
See? Oh, honey, that's wonderful. Kicking like crazy. He's listening. Put your hand on your tummy and hum to him. You used to love that.
So what if the loved ones we have lost could be part of our future? This is what Callum Worthy posts on X with this video that is publicizing the possibility of talking with the deceased, our loved ones that have passed to a better life.
It feels like he's dancing in there. Oh, honey. Mom, would you tell Charlie that bedtime story you always used to tell me? Once upon a time, there was a baby unicorn.
I mean, guys, this is insane. I mean, the grandmother is dead, but they are talking with the grandmother, and they are talking to the grandmother through this app, which replicates the voice of the grandmother. And of course, it's pretty convincing, but at the same time, it's very scary. Now, I want to show it to you again in the original version, so you can see how scary it is.
He's getting bigger. See? Oh, honey, that's wonderful. Kicking like crazy. He's listening. Put your hand on your tummy and hum to him. You used to love that. It feels like he's dancing in there. Oh, honey. Mom, would you tell Charlie that bedtime story you always used to tell me? Once upon a time, there was a baby unicorn who didn't know he knew how to fly. This baby unicorn was like your mom because she didn't know that she knew how to fly, but she knew how to do all kinds of fabulous things.
Hi, Grandma.
Hey, Charlie. How was school today?
It was really fun. I made this crazy shot in basketball.
I don't really care that much about basketball. What about the crush?
Stop. Grandma, stop talking.
Just tell me one thing.
Look who's gonna be a great grandmother.
Oh, Charlie. Oh, congratulations.
She says that he's been kicking a lot, though. Like, a little too much.
Tell her to put her hand on her tummy and hum to him. You loved that.
You would have loved this moment.
You can call anytime. Okay, Mom, I just need a quick video.
Is this like an audition or something?
No, Mom, just 3 minutes.
You need my best side?
Can I see another one?
I can play the piano.
She's so talented.
I am. I'm your mother after all.
Keep going. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was born as a very young child.
So this is an ad for an app which will bring back to life your loved one. You film for 3 minutes this person while they're still alive, and then they are kept in a storage, in an AI memory that then will replicate them once they are dead. It's insane. It's just necromancy, guys. There's no justification for this insanity aside from the fact that we're living in an era in which people seem to be attracted by the most bizarre things. But if you think about it, I've been talking about it in my trilogy dedicated to Cyber Satan about this app already. It is one of the most sick things that can come up. Can be brought. In connection to the AI, bringing back your dead relatives, talking to a dead relative is probably the sickest, I think. There is a lot of other sick things. We said that the Exorcists are very much worried about Satanists using the AI to replicate the rituals, to include the children in these rituals, so acts of pedophilia that can be replicated in these rituals generated by the AI and so on. But it is quite incredible what this technology is really opening. It's opening literally the gates of hell if you think about it. And once they're open, I don't think there is the possibility of shutting them. They're probably going to stay open forever. So we are ushering in a new era of Satanism. We don't really know where this new era of Satanism is going to bring us. And it's pretty disturbing. Of course, the church will like to say they are always, on the just side. They are the ones we have to go in May, so in Rome we can all be trained as exorcists and all that. But the church itself in the last few years, and I said that even in volume 6.66, here they said who can conduct an exorcism. They claim, of course, they are in charge of things. They prepare the exorcist even for these new problematics and for the new problems that raise with the AI. But having said that, the priests are also the ones who are marrying into this AI technology, often using AI technology to write their documents, to write their speeches. We have AI chatbots that imitate priests and start chatting with you to convince you to join the Catholic Church. So the cyber Satan is really rising, and it's also becoming an we saw an evangelic church in Germany duplicating the image of Jesus and talking through an AI-generated priest to the people who were inside the church not so long ago. So it is pretty scary that this technology is really developing so fast, and is developing at the same time all kinds of insidious ways in which Satan the devil worshippers can use the AI. So this year, for the first time in Rome, there will be, of course, a conference organized by the Catholic Church. David Murgia, who runs Catholic Risk and Insurance Services, which is a research group which tracks cults and the use of the AI, said that the police tells them that the Satanists are using AI to hide their content online and communicate with each other. So now there is also this other insidious element, the fact that the AI can help the Satanists hiding better. And in fact, this year, there has been also discussion also in regards to occult groups that are using the AI to generate the symbols they use in the rites. And this is going to be also a topic which will be discussed in May, when there is going to be this 20th gathering dedicated to the Ministry of Exorcism by these important participants. Around 170 to 200 people will be participating to this important event at the Pontificio Regina Apostolorum, which is a Vatican-affiliated university, of course controlled by the Jesuits, who are always been in charge. In fact, they are in charge even of the film The Exorcist back in the days. When the film came out, there was for the first time an actual Jesuit who was actually one of the actors, the second priest that comes in, aiding the other priest who has been called for checking out this case of exorcism. He's actually a real Jesuit, and he was acting in the film The Exorcist, and giving also the Jesuits advice to the film The Exorcist, which was completely controlled by the Jesuits. So it's difficult to really be sure about their intention of fighting the devil, because with the Vatican II, and that is something which I explained profusely and in depth in volume 12 of my confession, the last of my confession series, where I explain how the Jesuits are at the top of the pyramid of power, which controls the Illuminati, the Freemasons, all the think tanks of the New World Order, the World Economic Forum, the Bilderberg, everything else. And the Jesuits have always been on top of all this, and not necessarily on the side of God, but rather on the side of science. And that means they are not really on the side of God, because we saw it with Pope Francis during the pandemic. The late Pope Francis was completely scared of the so-called pandemic and COVID-19 that the whole of St. Peter's Square was emptied for his when he celebrated that mass on his own in front of an empty square. I mean, that was believing more in science than in God, even when science was actually lying to us on the dangers of this alleged pandemic. But in any case, today it was important for me to explain, because Pope Leo, he's saying don't use AI to write homilies. Pope Leo is actually saying he chose this name because Leo XIII was the guy in charge of the great industrial revolution. He says he is equally in charge of the next revolution, which is the AI revolution, the robotics revolutions. The Pope Leo Pope Leo XIV says that the brain must be treated like a muscle, or it will die. And he's right about that. He's right about the fact that priests shouldn't use AI to write homilies. But we already saw that priests are using the AI to write homilies. We are seeing rabbis who are using the AI to write their speeches. We are basically seeing that the AI is aiding a lot of the so-called religious scene in a way or in another. And I'm not sure that is for the better, actually. Absolutely. When you see that, for example, in the Far East, in Japan, there is robots, AI robots in charge of monasteries, of Buddhist monasteries, or in India, in the Hindu temples filled with robots. It's not really something that brings you a lot of confidence in the religion of tomorrow, because the religion of tomorrow, like I explained in my books, especially in volume 7, I explained the fact that the one world religion of the future ultimately is being built so it could succumb under the AI and cyber Satan that will not only control the physically manifested, the material world, but also the spiritual world, because ultimately Satan wants your soul. That's it. Satan wants your soul. So beware of the rise of cyber Satan. Beware of what we have discussed today. Beware of the fact that, yes, the exorcists are actually denouncing it, and they're actually warning the members of this year's biggest event dedicated to exorcism. They're warning them, saying, you should definitely meet in Rome so we can prepare you for what is coming up. And all this is happening while the majority of people are simply ignoring Satan. And ignoring Satan is the best way for Satan to actually have great success. Because the moment and here you have all the contacts if you are interested in participating in this event. You have also a phone number. I would be curious to call this phone number and talk with this Renato Zeoli to ask him a few questions as a journalist. Maybe I would do that in the near future. Let you know what he says, because I'm kind of eager to understand what's their idea now. Because I've been warning for a long time that the rise of the AI will bring this kind of problems, and suddenly they have arrived to an understanding that the AI is now a dangerous thing. Maybe they should have followed my books, because I've published this book in 2019, and now it seems like the subject is pretty current. Then I published this other book in 2022, followed a year later by Confessions of an Illuminati Volume 9. And we are now, of course, discussing also Jeffrey Epstein, because Jeffrey Epstein himself was aiding the rise of cyber Satan. We discussed it earlier on in the show. He was an absolute believer. And at the same time, he was also often deriding Christians and Catholics. I explained that in a previous article on leozegami.com. He was actually in course with the infamous artist Andres Serrano, who created that monstrosity, that so-called piece of art called Pissed Christ. So that is pretty much what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. He was an heretic, full on. He apparently even lived in the Vatican. Check out my latest articles on leozagami.com, as well as my books. And we will see each other, of course, in 1 week from now. I want to thank for today's transmission Daniel Estes, Margot Rosada Minta, Helen Sucatre, Abraham Belez, Yo Uzumaki, and Costa Josefides. I think that today all the people who have followed us have understood that it's very dangerous to leave uncontrolled your child in front of a computer, in front of a mobile phone, when you have this kind of technology that is really aiding the rise of Cyber Satan and the Antichrist. You should be aware. Not just, okay, I let my kid play for hours on end video games, thinking that video games are just, entertainment. No, video games also are part of the problem that we have discussed today. Video games are absolutely part of the problem. The violence which is often present in those video games is of a satanic nature, just like the violence we see in Hollywood and in the movies that come out of Hollywood. The fact that today, I went to see a movie the other day, a great movie, I must say, great movie. I had this preview screening, first screening of the movie The Bride, which is basically The Bride of Frankenstein, an imaginary follow-up to Mary Shelley's original Frankenstein. A great movie, I repeat, a great movie. But before watching this movie, I had to watch the trailers of other 5 or 6 movies, as you usually do before when you go to the cinema. You have all this. It's part of the fun, usually. You're introduced to other possible movies to watch. But for me and my wife, it was just like shocking. It was one horror movie after the other, bombarding the viewer with violent image, satanic images like it was incredible. If a fragile brain brought into that context, in front of those images, bombarded by those loud sounds, lights, and everything else, they can come out of a cinema possessed. Possessed. This is not a joke, guys. They could come out of a cinema possessed. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go inside the cinema reciting the rosary? No, I'm not saying that. But be aware. Be aware, because the dangers are there. And they are actually in front of us all over the entertainment world. Thank you so much for following us today from all our channels on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, Rumble, BitChute, and Band.video. Don't miss the next episode of the Leo Zagami Show. There is no other show like the Leo Zagami Show, especially after 20 years of Illuminati Confessions. This year, in this new format, Illuminati News. I wish we had more time, because there is so many things that I would love to discuss with you. They just arrested a 60-year-old bishop here in San Diego, Catholic bishop, Catholic from the Chaldean. Imagine that. Not good news for the Catholic Church. We have a war that is being pushed by the Chabad Lubavitch movement. And next week, I have a surprise show, a special that I want to announce this week, dedicated to the Chabad Lubavitch movement. And this in connection, of course, with the Sabbatean influences upon Chassidism, upon the Chassidic and Mitnagic movements. We will have an excursion into the Messianic Cabal and its disseminators in the aftermath of Shabbatai Zevi, but also connected with what is happening today in Iran, because just like Tucker Carlson said a couple of days ago about this Chabad Lubavitch movement has a lot of responsibility. Hope you're going to be with me next week, and thank again to our sponsors.
Illuminati want my mind, soul, and my body. Secret society, trying to keep it on.